Every meal you eat connects you to a vast biological chain. We trace a linear path from a plant, the base producer, up to an insect, a small predator, a larger predator, and a human. But to support one human, you need a massive pyramid consisting of thousands of plants and animals beneath us. Nature runs this entire structure on a remarkably strict energy budget. For millions of years, that budget dictated exactly how many organisms could survive. But recently, we introduced synthetic chemicals that do not follow nature's accounting rules. Normally, as you move up the food chain, the available energy steadily disappears. But when a human-made toxin enters this exact same system, the opposite happens. The poison multiplies. This creates a strange ecological reality. Sitting at the top of the food chain puts humanity at the peak of a severe energy shortage, while simultaneously placing us at the epicenter of a toxic time bomb. Surviving as an apex predator means your body ultimately bears the accumulated consequences of every single layer of life below you. To understand why this happens, we have to look at how an ecosystem actually functions. It is a continuous mechanical interaction between living biological elements, which we call biotic components, and non-living physical elements, like sunlight and water, known as abiotic factors. The foundation of this interaction relies on autotrophs, like green plants. They act as biological engines, pulling in solar energy and converting it through photosynthesis. But this energy transfer is highly inefficient. According to a principle called Lindemann's 10% law, when a primary consumer eats a producer, 90% of the plant's stored energy is immediately lost, burned up through metabolism, or released into the environment as heat. This heavy tax applies at every single step. A frog eating an insect only gets 10% of the insect's energy. A snake gets 10% of that. By the time you reach the fourth or fifth layer, the original energy block has shrunk to a microscopic fraction. Because so much fuel burns off in transit, there simply isn't enough energy remaining to support a sixth or seventh level. The laws of thermodynamics physically limit the height of every food web on Earth. Still, nature ensures that the waste and the dead organisms from these levels are put back to work. This cleanup is handled by decomposers, mostly microscopic bacteria and fungi. These decomposers break down complex organic matter and return the raw nutrients back to the soil. It is a perfectly closed loop where zero biological material is wasted. But modern agriculture introduced a new variable. We began coating our crops and soil with synthetic chemicals to maximize our food yield. Because these molecules were designed in laboratories, bacteria and fungi haven't evolved to digest them. They are non-biodegradable. By injecting materials that cannot decay into a closed-loop environment, we created a persistent chemical glitch that nature has no biological mechanism to clear away. When a plant absorbs a non-biodegradable pesticide from the soil, it survives inside the plant's cells. When an insect eats that plant, the chemical transfers into the insect. Because the insect's body cannot metabolize or excrete this synthetic molecule, the toxin becomes permanently locked inside its tissue. This process is called biological magnification. The math gets dangerous at the next level. To survive on the strict 10% energy budget, a small bird has to eat hundreds of these insects. It extracts a tiny fraction of energy, but absorbs 100% of the accumulated toxins. This process scales exponentially. By the time an apex predator consumes a meal at the top, they ingest a highly compressed, massive dose of the original poison. The biological structure of the food chain takes our own non-biodegradable waste and mathematically weaponizes it against apex predators. The higher you sit in the hierarchy, the more vulnerable you become to your own chemicals. This chemical accumulation isn't limited to the soil. We also released a different class of non-biodegradable synthetics into the atmosphere, known as chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. For decades, these gases were entirely unregulated. They were the standard chemical coolant packed into the back of almost every refrigerator and air conditioner worldwide. When these appliances leaked or were discarded, the CFCs floated up into the stratosphere. There, they began chemically ripping apart O3 molecules, the ozone layer, which serves as Earth's primary abiotic shield against incoming harmful ultraviolet radiation. This data visualization shows the macro-scale consequence of that invisible accumulation. We can observe the progressive growth of a deep purple and blue void over Antarctica, mapping a massive hole in the ozone layer expanding from 1979 to 1992. When the international community realized the scale of the damage, they agreed to the Montreal Protocol in 1987. This effectively banned CFC production worldwide, proving that we have the capacity to correct the environmental glitches we introduce. Our survival at the top of the pyramid relies entirely on the stability of the foundation beneath us. Protecting that position requires us to respect the mathematical rules of energy flow and ensure that our waste can actually fit back into nature's closed-loop cycle.